I'm Olivia Quale. I am a dancer and acrobat. I've been fusing dance and circus since I was a teenager. I started doing gymnastics when I was a kid and then went to dance school later on and mixed the two. Yeah. And I've worked with a circus company called Dragon, making a show which is currently running in China actually. And I've worked for various dance companies, worked in Germany with a very release-based contemporary company called Strada Compagnia Danza, and I've just spent nearly 5 years at Motion House over in the UK. So in between I've done lots of bits and bobs, and now I'm forming my own company called Olivia, which is a fusion of dance and circus. And we were interested because my partner is an acrobat, a trained acrobat and martial artist. I've worked in dance, gymnastics, acrobatics and also aerial, and we just were interested to find a language to integrate the ground-based circus with dance. So we do hand-to-hand acrobatics and adagio acrobatics, and we mix that with dance in a fluid way. Our aim is to basically find something where you can't see where the circus ends and the dance begins, so it moves fluidly from one genre into another, and sort of the whole way through the show, so it makes sense as a story as well. We don't have a formula as such. We have one show that we made. The thing is that we have different styles. So we made a street performance show. So street is a very stylized type of movement. It has to be quite over the top, because you've got people coming to watch from quite far away. So we started off thinking about which tricks we wanted to include and how we could link that into a narrative. How we can throw a pitch without going prepare. So we take away all the preparation, which in acrobatics is quite difficult because you need that preparation, but we try and cover the preparation with a story. So, for example, a pitch position, which is a big throw, comes from the hands here, and then you know immediately a pitch is coming. So we found a reason for Jan to have his hands here, so that it comes as a surprise. Yeah. And then, the dance, both the dance and the circus is there for a reason. Yeah. But that's a very narrative piece, whereas the piece we're working on at the moment is a lot more abstract, and it contains a lot of contact lifts. But then how can you take a contact lift further into doing a handstand and holding and moving through it into something else? How can you don't necessarily have to hold the handstand like you would in acrobatics, but you move through it into something else, changing dynamics, using release technique dance, which is very opposite to acrobatics, and how we can maybe sharpen release and soften acrobatics and meet in the middle. Yeah. Well, that's something, usually acrobatics have set moves. Yeah. You have a way of going into it, you have a way of holding it, and you have a way of finishing. Yeah. And that's the difference between acrobatics and dance. So we've taken something which is very rigid and structured, and we've improvised around it so that there's no way of beginning and ending. Yeah. You see the trick, but it comes out of nowhere. Nice. So that's the difficulty, I think, because when you're an acrobat, when I was doing gymnastics before dance, my brain saw movements like this. When I started dancing, I had to learn for my brain to do this and learn sequences. So we're putting a dance way of thinking behind acrobatics, which is quite difficult, as I said, because you do need to focus. Yeah. So to find a flow kind of thing. So you still need to find a flow. I mean, there's a lot of problems with fusion because it's very easy to do acrobatics, bit dance, shove them together and call it fusion. Yeah. And that's not fusion. For me, that's not fusion. To have a show with everything in it isn't fusion, it's just a mixed genre show, multidiscipline show. So I think that's a problem. You know, it's a challenge, but it is quite difficult, and it's also difficult to find the right artists because often there's quite a, you know, if you're an acrobat, you don't really like, you know, dance is like, it's just dance, you know, and acrobats, you know, got this sort of, I'm a hardcore acrobat. And then also dancers, you know, like, oh, I don't want to tighten my muscles, oh, you know, that's a bit... So it's quite hard sometimes to find people that do the two. But I think that actually they complement each other. I think you have to find a way. And the big problem, I think, is this whole thing that, you know, when you're doing something acrobatic, it is dangerous and you have to focus before you do it. And, you know, in dance, sometimes you don't have the time because you just move through. So somehow the problem with fusing it is that it becomes quite tricky. It can become quite dangerous, I think, because you still have to take the time to prepare properly, but in a way that's a little bit more subtle. We work in a different way, and I've learned lots of things that, you know, although I did gymnastics when I was younger, I sort of left that behind me and became a dancer, and I've been quite, at first I was quite like, it was quite difficult to then open my mind to be working again in that acrobatic way, because I wanted just to, you know, I changed mindsets and I got into the dance mindset. So I think that, I mean, it's
coming back around a different way.
Yeah, it's coming back around, but from a different perspective.
Great.
It's interesting because you do learn a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's quite exciting because I think at the moment it's quite relevant. You know, lots of people are actually giving it a go, which is really nice. But I've not really seen that many fusion shows where I think it's really fusion. I have seen some, but I think there's a lot more to be discovered. So I think it's a good thing to play around with.